Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Build with Stakki. Really good guest this week. We have Richard Lane of Durham Lane, which many people may recognise as an outsourced SDR and go-to-market agency. Richard, thanks very much for coming on this week, and pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here, James. Pleased to be with you. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Richard, do you want to give everybody just maybe a bit of a better introduction than I did? Like, give us a little bit of, your history and a little bit on Durham Lane, because the volume of SDRs, coaching, upskilling that you will have done will probably be much higher than most people. And so we'll dive into that later, but give people a bit of a context.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, James. So Durham Lane, we were founded in 2011 by myself, Richard Lane, and my business partner, Lee Durham. We always said we're sales, not marketing, when it comes to branding. Probably see what we did with the company name. We're a global lead generation partner to predominantly, but not exclusively, enterprise organizations. So based out of the UK, working natively across Europe and also into North America. And we have a partner in North America as well, who we work really closely with, managing projects both ways, so that we can provide a transatlantic service to our customers. Very passionate about obviously sales, but the being the front end of the sales engine on behalf of our customers. So I think from a responsibility point of view, take that really a really careful and considered approach to how we create great opportunities for our customers, and much of it is centered around our methodology, selling at a high level, and our Magic 35 qualification tool, which I think is one of the things that maybe stands us out a little bit from others.
So with that background of sort of agency for the last 13, 14 years, how many SDRs have you now got in place? And maybe do you have an estimate on how many you would have seen through
Right.
those years, actually?
Yeah, so we're almost 100 people as an organization, and the vast majority of that is our SDRs. That's the service they provide to our customers. Earlier on in our history, we were trying to be three companies in one. So we had a consulting, training, and coaching business. That was my previous consultancy. We had our outsourcing, and we had a sales graduate recruitment program, which lots of people do. We took those two and sort of turned them inward to support the growth of our business, being the outsourcing bit, which is really always the scalable piece. How many people have? I like to think how many people have gone through or come through the business and have learned some lifelong skills that frankly will support them in both their personal, private, and their business lives for the rest of their career, if they should choose to remember them and use them. And it will be hundreds in terms of the total. So got some, probably one of the things as a founder I'm perhaps most proud of is that we have probably a dozen or more people that have come through our business and joined our enterprise customers in a sales role, having got to work with that enterprise company with us and having been trained by us, and we've developed a career transition program, and frankly they've got into jobs that they wouldn't have probably got an interview with the recruiting company interviewing on behalf of the enterprise if it hadn't been for us being able to provide that journey. So that's one of the things that I think has been one of the biggest thrills of the journey so far.
That's a great point, and it sort of backs up one of my core beliefs. And I do often fairly aware that I'm biased, having been from SDR agency background myself,
Yeah.
but I think one of the best places young graduates or young people can learn to do outbound sales and learn to be an SDR is in an agency, because you're surrounded by so many other SDRs covering different messages, different campaigns. So what goes on inside, I guess, that training floor, in the training rooms with management, with leadership, is all focused on how to be a better SDR, how to have better outbound processes. And you really start to understand all of the structures necessary to manage your pipeline, follow up, structure conversations, not just, obviously you learn about the products for your customers, but where we see SDRs go wrong, maybe when they're employed by vendors, is it's product training for
Yeah.
weeks, and then they get put on the phone. Whereas if you can learn all of the key skills for outbound in an agency and then go the other way, I think they're often like turn out to be the best SDRs long term.
Yeah, I think you're right, James. I think there are a couple of things in there. One is our methodology is based around consultative and question-based selling. So frankly, you don't really need to know that much about the product. So therefore, in your future career, you understand that by asking great questions, by being interested, you become interesting, and that you can have a conversation and build a dialogue without necessarily having to slow yourself down and probably hide behind product information. So I think that's one thing that we managed to do, or going agency side helps. I think the other thing, which is a really important one, is you just get so much more experience in so many different areas. So, our people typically will work a number of different programs throughout their career with us. Some maybe lots, others maybe fewer, but still multiple. Um, and selling the same thing but for a different company is totally different. So,
Yeah,
I always use the example that if I'm representing one of the big four, I can probably get you a meeting with any CFO because they're always going to take a meeting from someone calling from the big four. But if I'm an unknown fintech startup with just the best product in the world, that'll be really hard because I don't carry the brand recognition. So people coming in and having those different experiences, you've got just different routes that you need to approach to be successful on those two different but similar projects, for example.
exactly. And that kind of leads us on to one of the key things that I think we'll maybe elaborate on throughout this conversation is how much of the upskilling and coaching enablement of SDRs far, like the importance and focus on that far outweighs probably any tool that you can ask them to use, which if you look at LinkedIn, look at G2 these days, everyone's suggesting you need 15, 20 different tools.
Yeah.
But if you haven't put in the time and effort to really coach and create space for that coaching, nothing else is going to matter. And that's, I guess, to your point, where you have all of that exposure to, the SDRs in an agency, they have that exposure to multiple campaigns, multiple ways of pitching, and they get a really good structure. And I imagine when we get to the Build with Stakki segment, you're not going to throw us 10, 20, 50 different tools that your SDRs are working on. Is that how much of your time would you say is focused on coaching and upskilling versus on like human conversation and process versus specific tools?
Yeah, I think the world's got um, tech swamped, hasn't it? And actually, from day one of Durham Lane, my prior background in my corporate days was with the world's largest e-learning company called Skillsoft, and we focused a lot on informal learning. So we've from day one of Durham Lane thought deeply about informal learning and the 70-20-10 principle. So 70% of what I learn is on the job, 20% is through formalized coaching, and 10% is through the classroom or reading a book or whatever it might be. And the irony used to be that all of the training budget used to go on that 10%, the formal bit, and no one used to spend anything on the rest. And then in comes coaching, and then coaching tools, etc. And that is shifting. But we tend, I still think of it pretty simply, actually. I think effort, attitude, and aptitude. If you can employ people that are willing to learn and willing to put the effort in to be successful, have got the right mindset and the right set of core values, I guess, then you can teach them the rest. And tech is obviously an enabler, but you got to know which bit to use to enable you.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess maybe that's a good segue for maybe let's jump into our Build with Stakki segment. Let's look at some of the tools you are using at the moment, and then we can go into continue the conversation around why you're picking those tools, how we're then using those to actually support SDRs, and love to dig into maybe just how you've seen that change and where to use the right tools. So let me share my screen. Starting point then, which CRM are you guys using?
So we obviously use, well, are we talking Durham Lane or Durham Lane customers or both?
I would probably go with Durham Lane.
So we're a HubSpot house.
Yeah, I imagine it was probably going to be HubSpot or Salesforce.
Yeah.
I imagine you have a lot, like pretty familiar with Salesforce or maybe Microsoft Dynamics as well with a lot of your customers.
Yeah, we keep joking with our head of sales because he absolutely loves HubSpot, and we keep saying it's now time to change to Salesforce, but he tells us he'll leave if he does. We used to be a Capsule. We used to use Capsule CRM with a lot of customers, particularly when we had smaller customers. Pipe Drive reviews, that was pretty good, but most of our customers, particularly enterprise, are on either Salesforce or Dynamics. Yeah. Some more and more actually HubSpot as well, but mainly from a marketing point of view.
Yeah, some of the cool stuff that HubSpot are doing now with sort of OpenAI being able to integrate with it and stuff is, I think it's gonna, we're kind of moving from that initial point where AI sits outside of the CRM and sits in the other tools.
Yeah,
there's a slow move where AI is now inside the CRM, and I think HubSpot are kind of leading that. So I think over the next 6 months, 12 months, we'll see more and more people making that shift if they're kind of on the cusp.
So what I've been seeing is, particularly in my conversations with enterprise prospects and customers, is that they're mainly replacing Pardo or Eloqua with HubSpot, and they're just finding it much more intuitive, much easier to use. From our HubSpot point of view, talk about AI inside, and have they called theirs Copilot as well? I think they have. But I did quite a cool thing last week. I have a couple of dashboards I use. I've got an overall business dashboard, and I just typed in, "Can you compare this chart with the same period last year?" And it did that comparison for me. So that's really starting to get cool because I'm now interrogating the data without having to go off and build a new chart or anything. And that's I think where it gets interesting.
And I guess to sort of our points before about the importance and value on like creating high performance is mostly focused or should focus on creating time and space to coach and upskill your reps. The amount of time save that you make as the leader, being able to just ask the AI within HubSpot, compare this chart or this data to the same period last year. You get that so much quicker, which saves you probably half an hour. You get to the data you need quicker. You can go back to your team with it more quickly. Okay, so we've got CRM as sort of, I imagine, the main place of work for most of the reps. And then what other tools are you using to, I guess, start creating lists or contact data?
Yeah, so Ocean we've used. We've just started experimenting with Clay. We've used Apollo.io. We use Cognism, which I presume is down below.
Yeah.
We use Zoom Info.
A lot of premium tools.
We've used Connect and Sell previously.
Powerful dialer. They can also provide some data in there.
Yeah, we've used that both internally and with customers. We've used Lusher until they started taking our eyes out from a cost point of view.
Interesting.
One of the guys has just started trialing Ample Market.
Yep. Good engagement, sort of multi-channel sequencer, good database in there. The dialer sits on Twilio though, so maybe we can run into some headaches sometimes with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Just to pause you there then. That's a lot of data tools that you've just mentioned. A lot of options, which maybe isn't typical of most sales stacks. Are you still using all of those, or are some of them?
We're not using all of them, and I'm probably blending the world of Durham Lane and the world of Durham Lane's customers together. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, we don't use Apollo anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think we're using Ocean at the moment.
Yeah.
We do
If you're
use
testing,
Cognos. We do use, yeah. I mean, we try and test everything out, right? And
of course.
but we're definitely not buying. We definitely haven't bought all of these tools. So
Yeah. And if you're testing clay, and like now, where clay is really useful um, is it can do a lot of that research, list building, verification. You can, set up a waterfall in there, and you can also use. It's also got its own lookalike features. So you probably don't. It's probably why you probably don't need Ocean anymore if you're going to use
yeah,
clay. And you use that for most of your list building, and then you've kind of got the best in breed or the
yeah.
traditional best in breed options
And the,
for, I guess,
and
each region.
the one we didn't pick up there, which is also mega expensive, is LinkedIn Sales Nav.
Yeah, of course. Interesting point on sales nav that I'm sort of asking everyone these days. Do you think it's still necessary? Do you see a scenario where maybe actually you don't need it at all? Because I think with the likes of Clay and a few other tools where you're able to build the lists, like in Apollo or in Clay, it's not necessarily as accurate, and you might miss out on some data, but it's much cheaper and you can get to there. So I do see both sides
Yeah.
of the argument. Where do you fall on that?
So I think we're entering a really interesting period. So you've got tools like Clay, and then you've got AI sitting on top, and you've got um, a bit like the example I just shared around. I've just asked a question and got a comparison. I think a lot of these tools will sort of replace each other.
Yeah.
Um, so LinkedIn, I've always thought, well, I can do what I need with the free version.
Hmm.
Um, but actually, some of the trigger events, signal listening, Sales Nav is really important piece of the stack. But um, it feels like we're entering a mass period of consolidation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine, circling back around on that point for the consolidation, I imagine you have Zoom info for your team's prospecting in the US, and you have Cognizant for the team's prospecting in EMEA.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
So we would always say Cognizant for UK EMEA, Zoom Info for North America. Yeah.
yeah. It might be worth you guys checking out Upsell. Um, Upsell, really good data across the States and the UK, but it's got a very clean Chrome extension that allows you to create the contacts. You can send it to any list you want. So that allows you to remove a lot of the license cost from the other big providers
Okay.
and just then ask for go back to them for on a consumption model to fill in the gaps. I've seen another agency do that. They saved 61% on their data costs, but doubled
Wow.
their mobile coverage.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Okay.
that's that type of consolidation that I think
Yeah.
helps. Worth looking at.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned you have someone testing Ample Market,
Yeah.
but being an agency, I imagine you have quite a few different modes of outreach, or maybe a couple of different tools. And so, what dialers, maybe what multi-channel engagement tools have you got?
Yeah. So we are a big Salesloft house.
Hmm.
Um, we're on a dialer, but I don't know what it is. So
Okay.
what would they be?
Salesloft does have its own dialer in there, or you could be using the HubSpot dialer, um, or you could be using
Yeah.
any one of these that I've
So
named.
I'm confusing again. I keep doing this, but I'm blending my two worlds together. So
Yeah.
our internal team aren't using Salesloft, but the rest of the business does.
Okay.
So our internal team uses HubSpot, and the
Yeah.
rest of our team uses Salesloft.
So the team on
Um,
behalf, acting on behalf of customers.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So we basically use Salesloft as our outreach platform for all of our
Makes
customer
sense.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Duck Soup we've used.
Yeah. Quite a good tool.
Um,
Quite
yeah,
really easy user face. Good to get going quickly on LinkedIn. Good for agencies as well. That have the agency
yeah.
license options.
Um,
From
Yeah,
an
that's
enablement point of view, what tools do you use? Reason I ask is obviously it's a key point of what you do, and you take it seriously, and that's why you're so effective at coaching SDRs and helping them get their roles in maybe enterprise businesses later on. You can do a lot of the enablement with the tools we've got in place here, with Salesloft and Ample Market, with the recordings and stuff like that. But do you have any other solutions in place? Your Legos, gongs, and stuff? Or?
Yeah, so we were in a Lego house, but we're
Mm-hmm.
not anymore. We are a Fathom. We are a Fathom
Yeah,
house. We use that across our RevOps team, which is a
yeah,
great tool, and just
really good.
seems to be getting better and better. So we built our sales methodology into it. We built Magic 35 qualification into it.
Yeah,
It's just fab. We built some
really
little
good.
AI agents where you can take the transcript and build out an exec summary from it, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's that's a cool tool.
Yeah, I
Um,
really like with Fathom the highlight feature. So
yes,
whilst you're actually in a call, you can hit highlight and it will record the lot. Like it will go rewind back to when the current speaker started speaking and record, and then you can turn it off when needed. But it means you can capture all the little training clips that you might
yeah,
need from that call to then distribute around the team,
yeah,
which
and
I
you can
think is
just
so effective.
create little vignettes to share and best
Yeah.
calls and stuff. I don't know if you've got it on here, but
Hmm.
a tool that I would like to recommend is Hyperbound. Have you
Yeah.
got Hyperbound?
It's not on here. Have spoken to them, but not
So
yet got them on here. They're in the backlog.
yeah, so we've we've bought into Hyperbound, particularly from how do we develop our people. So we've now got a um, creating opportunities within 30 days as a goal for
Hmm.
our reps coming into the business as an SDR. So
Yeah.
you go through the Durham Lane training program, and within 30 days, we're hoping that you're going to be creating opportunities, qualified opportunities on behalf of our customers, and Hyperbound's a key tool for us in that. So I've always had this thing about your first 100 calls.
Yeah.
Before you've made your first 100 calls, had your first 100 conversations, you don't really know what you're talking about. You're too busy thinking about the next question rather than listening to the answer.
Yeah.
Hyperbound is just a cool piece of AI tech that is helping us get people ready super fast.
Excellent. Definitely one for people to check out.
Yeah,
And
they've just got their Series A.
mm, excellent. Any other tools then, maybe that you like to mention or that you're also using? Because at the moment, it seems like a pretty comprehensive stack. You've got some good enablement. You've got
Yeah,
the best in I guess region data options. A tool that helps with the AI and the initial list builds, and engagement
the
tools.
the only probably the only other one that I would mention, I don't think I've seen it listed here, is Quack.
Quack.
Do you
Yeah.
know Quack?
Yeah,
Um,
Quack, good power dialer
yeah,
for people using Salesloft and Outreach. Sits
yeah.
inside.
So that's worked well. The other one, um, oh, what's it called? So many tools, aren't there? There's another one that we've been. It'll come back to me. I'll try
Yeah,
and remember it. But we've been using another one, which has been again, how do you get the cleanest data? And so Titan X, that's it.
Titan
So
X. Yeah,
yeah, so we've been using Titan X. That's been delivered some great
yeah,
connection results for us actually.
yeah. Titan X, Joey's tool, sort of scores all of your data, cross references it, so then you know where to focus any of your calling effort to to increase your likelihood of connections.
Yeah, and
Um,
we saw, for example, with one quite discrete project, we saw Call Connect go from 5.9% to 25.8% or
yeah,
something like that. So
exactly.
which is makes a
Amazing tool.
significant difference.
Exactly. Amazing tool, right? So great little stack here. Um, you've got, and this is kind of maybe typical of what we see, I think, with particularly with agencies. You've got CRM, you've got some best in breed data, experimenting with Clay to help build lists, but you're still giving the SDRs control over maybe sourcing the mobile numbers, with the contact data enrichment platforms, and then you've got an engagement platform to help them do the outreach, and we've got something to focus on really strong enablement. And the way in which you have this set up, and you mentioned querying HubSpot using its AI features now, gives you time back to go back to real coaching, real upskilling,
Yeah.
and using that multi-channel approach. Excellent. So then one of the things maybe I think we were going to come back onto is just, where do you maybe see the best use of AI in some of the tech at the moment? We see regularly that there's a lot of companies pushing lots of tech. It's hard to keep track of all the different tech. There's tech bloat in in front of a lot of sales teams, and that's causing distractions. But there are still some good places where AI is adding efficiency. Where would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think it can be pretty daunting in terms of how do I get on that AI journey. I think for me, the first place is to start with what people have already done. So if you look at your Saleslofts, if you look at your HubSpots, they've started building it inside the tool, so you can start experimenting there. I think that's a pretty low risk and easy way to get. I think it's about being more inquisitive, isn't it? So I've just sort of thought, right, I'm going to get inquisitive with our HubSpot platform and ask it lots of questions. And some of it doesn't work, and some of it does, and there's some value in some bits and less in others. So I think start with where it's already been built in and is available to you as these tools that you've invested in are trying to ensure their relevance and are sort of doing the spend and the R&D for you. So that's one way. I think the other area where we've been trying to approach this is sort of thinking, what are the biggest time stealers, and can we possibly solve them with AI, or how do we create a comprehensive and consistent approach to the way we do business? So, for example, our Magic 35 tool, years ago we built, we digitized it, and so we've got sort of circa 20,000 Magic 35. So we've got this big data set. How can we use AI to interrogate that more, or how can we use that to draw out more sentiment, or how can we use it to build new data sets that will be valuable for us and for our customers to create success for them? So that's what we're doing at the moment. We're building agents, like we've got a recommendation agent, for example, so we can take Fathom transcripts from discovery calls, put them into our recommendation agent, and it'll build out our exec summary for a deck, for example. Just really simple things, which when you use then across the team consistently, suddenly become a good sort of time save way of doing work. So I guess in summary, I would use what's in front of you and what's available to you that you've already paid for and you're getting value from, and then start experimenting with where are the biggest time saves that you can create across the business.
Yeah, I like that. You're already spending money on some of these tools, and it would be naive to think that not every single tool, or pretty much every single tool, is already trying to find smart ways to put AI inside of it to help you cut down on that like the time intense things that don't need to be, rather than people going and finding other tools to add in that AI, and then suddenly you're starting to jam in more things, and suddenly you have this bloat, and then suddenly the consistent effort is now distracted and broken up when you were trying to save time. One of the things you mentioned is, or you kind of kept mentioning, was like creating consistent process, consistent effort. And that kind of, for me, ties into consistency over time is what creates the compound effect of all of your team's efforts, which creates more pipeline, which creates more revenue. What would you say to people who are maybe like looking to make changes quick and get results quick?
In terms of tools, or in terms of what to do?
I guess in terms of building their pipeline.
Yeah. So we have a range of mantras. Mantra number one, I always come back to is business fit, business value. So um, go and find the people where you believe there's a fit and you believe you can add value. So start with the data, um, put in the right amount of effort, have a conversation that is value based um, rather than just a script or a pitch, because actually my rule anyway is that if you believe there's a fit and you believe you can add value, both of which can only have happened because you've thought about it or done at least a bit of research, then you're very welcome to go after that individual or that company as many times as you like. You know, as long as it's not all in one day, obviously. But if there's a fit, then actually, if they're not interested, it's sort of their miss out. So um, I think that sort of changes the mindset a bit. And I suppose everybody wants quick, rapid pipeline. I would say actually you want high quality pipeline rather than lots of it. So one of my favorite tools is what we call hotspotting. So, you know, who are your customers? Who else out there is like them? So some of the tools that you shared when we did the built with Stakki, you've got that opportunity to build out similar fit type companies and then take what will become quite a standard message into that segment, and there should be a fit. You should be able to demonstrate value, and therefore you should be able to have a conversation.
Exactly. And allowing your team the time to build that consistency, continue to get the message right, understand where the value adds are, what the right messaging is. I think you need to be giving it at least 6 months in most instances of, it doesn't mean they're doing the exact same thing for those 6 months, but you're giving them time to consistently talk to, and then as long as you're measuring their number of conversations and the number of follow-ups created, the
Yeah.
meetings will come, and you have to give them that time for that compound effect of follow-ups, which I see with all these tools that are being thrown out there. People think they can turn on a new tool, blast their TAM, and they'll get a load of revenue and pipeline. And actually, a little bit more patience is going to give you a much bigger pipeline if you're willing to wait, coach, enable, and track.
If you could go out and tell every prospect and customer that, James, that'd be really appreciated. Because I think people do. You know, why do you outsource? Often because I'm desperate for sales pipeline, or I've got some really expensive sales guys that are sitting behind the desk, and I want them out and about and meeting people. So the last thing we're usually afforded is time. That's not always true, but you're absolutely right. Anything under 6 months, and I don't think you've really had long enough to learn. And I also think if you hired someone, if you hired a team, would you can them after 3 months? Probably not. You know, so actually, it does take time. I don't think us as an industry we particularly help ourselves because I think there are too many players that are willing to say, well, you know, unless you create anything, we won't. Unless we create, you know, it's all 100% results guaranteed, or you know, it's going to take 2 weeks to get you up and running. It just doesn't. Just takes longer. We take about a month to onboard. We do a real proper job of it. We don't go live till we're ready. We use Hyperbound to practice in our time rather than on the job, as it were. Um, but once you're live, you need that time to build the conversations through. And the stat will have changed now, but I always used to train 5 to 12 attempts to connect with someone. Salespeople give up at 3 or 4. We don't even hit the stat. That was probably now worse, harder because of the amount of noise out there anyway. So it does take time.
And just like kind of struck on a point that I'm sure me and you can add a lot of light to, hopefully, is that if people are going to outsource, time and the willingness to sort of really enable the team you're outsourcing to means you will get quality pipeline. And anybody, particularly in this new market, who says, people are probably fed up with it. I get it loads, which I find always baffling when if people just looked at what I've done for the last 10 years, they know I was at an agency. People probably have it in their inboxes all the time now about, we'll give you 100 leads this month for £100 a lead. And when you need pipeline and you're up against it, and you have pressure from leadership, that is obviously attractive and it catches your eye. People who haven't outsourced before might entertain it. And the worst case they think is, well, it's a small cost. Worst case, I've only burnt a small part of my budget. Best case, we get all these leads. But there is so much difference from that kind of demand genny, lead genny, high promising, low cost, compared to proper outsourced SDRs that actually delivers pipeline. And if you go with those newer, cheaper, over promising agencies, I think, and I've seen many customers just lose 6 months and burn a load of domains, and they're exactly where they were.
Yeah, the time's the killer there, isn't it? I think the do you know, I wonder if this stems from LinkedIn as well, because I get LinkedIn telling me you've got all these leads, and I look at them and think they're not leads, they're contacts.
Yeah.
You know, they're all right. Let's call them relevant contacts. You know, but they're not leads. A lead is someone that is interested in, a lead is someone that has got a problem that I can solve, and possibly even is interested in learning what we do. You know, that's the and so serving me up 1,000 contacts, that's actually probably quite an expensive way of doing it versus a lot of the tools we've just looked at, when I'm in control of it. So yeah, it's very different, and it is a challenge because I always say when I'm talking to new prospects, say, look, our industry doesn't have a great reputation. That means the hurdle is higher to get over, but once you get over it, you're easier to please because actually quality tends to win out. So, that's where we've come from it. But it is a challenge because you have people that feel they're going to get loads if they spend just a bit, and they're also desperate for leads, and so feels like a bit of a low risk. But the point you mentioned, which is true, is that 6 months later they're in the same position, they've burnt their domains, and most importantly, they've got no pipeline.
Exactly. And so I would urge, and I regularly have these conversations because people ask me about outsourcing, SDRs and stuff, and I regularly offer people in the communities I'm in, I'm happy to jump on calls and give like a second opinion on whoever's pitching you outsourced services, what they've suggested, and tell you where you should maybe question and what you should push back on and what you should accept and who's doing the right things. But I think there is real education and real value for people thinking, actually, let me look at the outsourced SDR agencies who have been around for 10 years or 5 years at least and have a good reputation, who, even if they cost me a bit more, those appointments are actually going to convert to pipeline. And then it's just an ROI calculation.
Yeah.
Quality and a willingness to work with you for a consistent period of time is going to deliver over everything else that we see in LinkedIn these days.
Yeah, the biggest thing I look for with a new customer is willingness to partner. If you have a customer that is all in, that's great news, because I would almost guarantee it's going to be successful. Over a period of time, and it may take longer or take less time depending on what it is you're who you're selling for and who you're selling to. But that partnership piece is critical. If you outsource a problem and feel like that's going to solve it, then we'd rather not take your business, to be honest. We want to partner.
Exactly. And that is a great place to end it on. Give people good insight into what good outsourcing is. And Richard, absolutely loved hearing some of your insights and understanding a little bit about how you view SDRing, what creates good high skill SDRs, and seeing a little bit of the tech. Where can people find you if they want to listen to you more and understand a little bit more about Durham Lane?
Yeah, best place. I started off as an SDR, by the way, before it was known as an SDR. Sales exec, I think I was, but back in the midst of time. So
I was just business consultant.
Business consultant, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, sort of still on that journey. But yeah, if you would love to chat to people, always happy to talk. Best place is durhamlane.com. So and obviously LinkedIn. I think you can get links off from there to where we're at. We run a podcast and just started some webinars. So yeah, always looking to try and engage with people that are interested in the world of sales.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Richard. Everybody, please like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube with Build with Stakki, and visit our website to see what you can build with Stakki.